quiet midwestern town is about to be forced into a waking nightmare where a total stranger walks among them in the daylight, waiting for the perfect moment to erase an entire family from history. The year is 1912. The air in rural Iowa is thick with summer heat, and the small town of Villisca is thriving, a bustling railroad hub. Neighbors walk down tree-lined streets, children play on open porches, and the local Presbyterian church is packed to the gills for the annual Children's Day exercise. It's a community built entirely on the warmth of the Midwestern sun and a shared, unshakable sense of security. But beneath that peaceful surface, a silent horror is already moving through the shadows toward a modest white house on East 2nd Street. An unknown transient killer is waiting in the dark, preparing a brutal midnight assault that will leave 8 people dead, an entire town paralyzed by suspicion, and a lasting psychological scar. The ripples of this single night would permanently alter how rural America viewed hospitality, strangers, and the safety of the open road. It began on a quiet Sunday evening. Josiah and his wife Sarah, their 4 children, and 2 young house guests walked home from church service under a moonless sky. They locked their front door, a rare precaution for the time, and then went to sleep. Sometime after midnight, a stranger emerged from the attic where he had been hiding for hours. Armed with Josiah's own axe, he moved from room to room in pitch darkness, systematically ending the lives of everyone inside. By sunrise, the bodies were discovered, and the town faced a critical choice: trust the authorities to find the transient traveler, or turn on each other in a desperate hunt for a local scapegoat. And they chose paranoia. Neighbors accused neighbors. The local businessman Frank Jones was bashed in the press, and traveling strangers were chased out of town by armed mobs. The primary suspect, a traveling preacher named Lynn George Jacqueline Kelly, was tried twice, but never convicted, and the real killer simply melted back into the railway lines. The next year, Iowa state officials formed the first centralized state bureau of criminal investigation to track transient suspects across town lines. 10 years later, rural communities across the Midwest construct modern police networks, replacing the old, informal small-town marshal system. Every decade, the American perception of the traveling stranger shifts from a welcome guest to an active threat. Hitchhiking becomes a cultural taboo. The traditional unlocked farmhouses of the heartland are replaced by gated properties and security locks. Look at how we view an outsider walking down a quiet neighborhood street today. We instantly check our security apps, lock our car doors, and eye them with deep suspicion. That modern reflex is a direct monument to a century-old bloodbath in an Iowa farmhouse. We traded our historic Midwestern hospitality for a permanent cultural shield, proving that fear can completely dismantle the open, welcoming spirit of a nation and turn neighbors into watchful guards. But what if that white house on East 2nd Street had remained peaceful that night? What if that unknown killer had never stepped off the train in Villisca? Without that highly publicized tragedy, rural America retains its classic open-door hospitality for decades longer. The deep-seated cultural fear of the traveling hitchhiker or the wandering stranger never takes root on the American psyche. We're left with a modern society that feels completely different, one where communities remain radically open and trusting, all because a single Midwestern family was spared. And what about you? If you lived through that terrifying summer in 1912, would you have stood by your neighbors and welcomed travelers? Or would you have locked your doors and joined the mob looking for an outsider to blame? Share it in the comments below. And if you would like to explore more of these ripples in history and in life, please hit subscribe and join me on The Ripple Trace.